Now we shift gears a little bit from dealing with trauma and with loss to dealing with traffic laws. Yvonne Okwara is seated with a man who has a personal and operational as well as professional experience there.
Indeed, yes, John, that is the case. Now, the Ministry of Transport, of course, since those new rules came into being, has maintained that there will be no sacred cows in the implementation of the new traffic rules. Today, this became all too clear when none other than Transport PS Nduva Muli was caught up in a traffic crackdown on the Thika superhighway. He now joins me live in studio to discuss this a little more. And of course, any questions that you have for him, please do send them in. Let's just start by talking about your personal experience today on the roads. Tell us what happened.
Today was a great opportunity to show that we really mean business with regard to road traffic rules and regulations. I was being driven on Thika Road. I was reading my newspaper. Apparently my driver was beyond the speed limit. When we were stopped, I told him to just go and receive what is supposed to be done when people are overspeeding. When he finished, I then got an opportunity to talk to the media who were there and to explain that there are no sacred cows and we shall not preach water and drink wine.
So your driver paid the fine of 10,000 shillings?
He left his bond of 10,000 shillings and he will go to court tomorrow.
So here's a question, you know, on a moral issue, that you were sitting in the car and yet you allowed your driver to go beyond the speed limit.
No, you know, if you're reading a newspaper and the speed limit is 50, you may not be able to tell if it's 50 or 60. You're not watching the odometer in the vehicle. And the driver is responsible for ensuring that they follow all the traffic rules and regulations. And when they don't happen, well, then those are their consequences for that.
All right. According to Section 42(3) of the Traffic Act, it also says that the person who is the owner or in charge of the vehicle, and I'm quoting the law now, says, shall not cause or permit any person to drive any vehicle at a speed exceeding 50 kilometers an hour.
Yes.
You are the owner of the vehicle, or at least in charge of it.
And therefore, when that happens, you pay the consequences. That's the way the law is, and we're saying that no one is above the law. And
so you abided by the law?
I abided by the law.
All right, let's talk a bit about that law because it's raising quite a bit of concern. If you noticed, PSV motorists have been resisting the mobile traffic courts, and a section of the LSK has been quoted as saying this is not anchored in law, the courts are not gazetted. What's your position on this?
Well, we have worked with the judiciary in setting up these courts, and very clearly, in fact, courts actually go normally, in other cases, go out to get evidence, and therefore we are quite clear that this is within the law. We're actually bringing justice closer to the people.
All right.
And making sure that we can improve safety on the roads.
But I think the instance you're referring to about when courts go to the scenes of crime to get evidence is a bit different than having courts stationed outside. For example, new courts like the ones in Naivasha and Migori have just recently been gazetted. But are the mobile courts gazetted in the law?
They are gazetted because what it is that when we go on the road in Kericho, for example, the magistrates of that court in Kericho are the ones actually undertaking their activities as part of the Kericho court. So that is the approach we have taken.
Let's talk a little bit about putting the notice in the papers, because that section that we just quoted also says that provided that adequate signage is put up informing the driver plainly that he's entering a speed limit zone of 50 and is leaving one. Was there a sign on Thika Road where you were stopped?
There are signs on Thika Road. There are signs, and we make sure that wherever they are vandalized, we return them. With our colleagues in the Kenya National Highways Authority. Usually at that time people are arguing whether there are signs or not. But if you actually watch very carefully, the road signs are there.
All right, we have a clip of that footage that was there. But putting the notice in the paper, some say, is merely not enough. Do we have signs on all sections of the roads? Because I remember there was one that was put up by the NTSA in the paper saying these are some of the areas that you're going into, but not all of them are marked.
Not all of them. We obviously have the challenge of people vandalizing some of these signs, and we will do our best to make sure that they are returned and make sure that we provide as much information to drivers as possible so that they can then
But then it is the government's responsibility to put up, or NTSA's responsibility to put up the signs.
Yes, and we are doing so. more and more road signs.
Have you done it everywhere?
We
Are
have not done it
motorists
everywhere,
driving around the cities of the streets of Nairobi knowing when they're entering a speed limit zone?
Yes, we're trying to make sure that all over the town and all over the city and other built-up areas, not only in Nairobi, that we have adequate signage to ensure that the roads are safe and drivers have sufficient information to drive safely.
Would it then be fair to apprehend drivers who exceed the speed limit where there's no signs?
Well, we are very clear when we're doing our job that where we're doing our job, there are adequate signs.
So it's only where the signs.
Where we
so
are
are you
doing our
saying
job.
today, Bwana PS, that where there is no sign, if one is apprehended, then it would be fair for them to say there was no sign and I was not aware that we're getting into a speed limit
zone? All drivers are required to take necessary precautions. The speed limits are actually known. That on a single lane road outside the city, you are allowed to move at a maximum of 100 kilometers per hour. Within built-up areas, you are not allowed to move beyond 50 kilometers per hour. Those are things we all know. And therefore, it is important that for all of us, we follow the law so that we can improve safety on our roads.
But the law does say provided that adequate signage is put up.
We will continue.
And that is in the law.
We are continuing to do so. And more and more road signs will be put up. Rome was not built in a day. We are going to make sure that we have put up as much signage as possible and ensure that people are aware.
Okay, here's one very quickly on Twitter. Patrick says some signs still read 100 kilometers per hour speed limit along the same section of Thika Road where they say it should be 50 kilometers per hour.
No, there are sections on Thika Road where it says 80 kilometers per hour, 100 kilometers, and it all depends on where you are on Thika Road.
Let's talk very quickly about the mobile courts. How do we make sure that they're not used as extortion rings by the police? In terms of bribery, what's to say? I won't say, well, it's 10,000, let me give you 2,000 and you let me go. How are you going to curb corruption, especially with the amounts of money involved?
What we're trying to do is to make sure that there's as little opportunity as possible for people to be corrupt. We are making sure that you can quickly pay your fine and move on. And I think that's the whole point, that we would like to make people more and more compliant. And when you have made a traffic offense, don't argue with the police, don't try and bribe them. Present yourself to the magistrate, accept that you're guilty, pay your fine, and behave better next time.
But let's just speak to corruption. It's a colossal amount of money. Today, on the road with you, there were 73 other motorists. At an average of 10,000 per motorist, that's about, 740,000 shillings. How do you just make sure that this money goes into the right hands? The police does not have a good reputation when it comes to transparency.
Well, we are working together. Not all policemen are corrupt.
True.
We are making sure that there are systems in place, proper monitoring systems. As you know, NTSA is working closely with the police. We have teams that are working, and because there are those systems and we are monitoring those systems, we're trying to bring down the opportunity and risk for corruption.
All right. Okay. We thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we do hope you drive home safely and within the speed limits.
And I do hope everyone else does the same.
Seeing as you can also get yourself caught if you can get apprehended or in your vehicle. What of other Kenyans? Is that the message?
Okay. That's the message.
No sacred cows is what the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Transport says. We'll keep your comments coming in on this one.